What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another Outcast Haven gameplay video. Today, we have Robert has joined me to talk through his gameplay from this last week's locals. We have Debro versus Syn, so decks we are very familiar with. Robert, say what's up.
What's up? Before anyone makes a comment that I misplayed, I played terribly this game, so open acknowledgement that I was not at my finest here. Also, my sleeves are brand new, and I think at one point my deck might tip over or something like that. So,
Spoiler alert! Spoiler alert!
The embarrassment.
Yeah, that's the way it goes. You know, sometimes you get those. You get prepped for locals. You're like, oh, I'm gonna sleeve my deck up real nice and new, but you know, man, new sleeves are slick and slippery, and they're sliding everywhere and stuff. So you guys are getting set up. This is Jonah, one of our locals, playing his Syn deck. So he's a fellow local Syn player. We've always dodged each other in the local, which is pretty good. Because that would be a mess if we had to play each other. Just like go to time completely. It looks like he's okay, there you go. I was gonna say the first two cards, or the first three cards he drew, were a Mechie Unison, a Flying Nimbus, and a Mechie Unison. And I was like, oh no, we're gonna have the whiff. Like whiffing on Oceanus feels so bad.
Yeah, so I do play Blake a lot, so was pretty familiar with this play. So just getting ready for all the shenanigans that 8-drop can do. But you know, I felt comfortable into this matchup, having played Blake so much. So you can see my poison counter. That's just to help me remember when I activate main, so that I can not forget to do that, because it's important.
I think the interesting thing here might be the fact that I don't know if you even noticed this while you were playing him, or if you're in your zone, or if you were just out of the zone or completely out of it. But he charged a ball, which granted isn't a Syn ball, but he charged the haze ball and then didn't play another ball turn one, which is interesting to me because that feels like a really inefficient use of your energy turn one to not get down, because if nothing else he could have popped the Syn ball to play the 8-drop the next turn.
I won't lie, didn't notice that, but I will say that um, I think he's still working on the deck. For example, after the game, you know, we gave him some pointers. He's not currently running Poutine, which I think is a big miss, just given how many cards are played with skills. So I think he's still working on the deck. It might not have all the lines down yet.
Yeah, because I think that the trick is, especially if you have Oceanus, because he had Oceanus in his opening hand, and I think the play into Debro, at least, is, in my opinion, is to use the Oceanus effect on the 8-drop Syn, simply because it allows you to have a barrier blocker, so it can't be removed, and it can just eat a 30k swing. That if you have the Oceanus that restands, it's even better, because it allows you to get 2 blocks out of it, or get a block and then block the leader swing or something. So it just kind of helps take the pressure off early, because that's the biggest issue Syn has right now is you into Dark Broly, you kind of take a beating from a lot of the big 30Ks that you can't really combo out of, and it removes the 9-drop, so the 9-drop hurts, and that looked like it looks like you've had a rough top 5 draw here.
Yeah, I hit 2 each, which is not ideal. I tried to run the Gogeta package and didn't necessarily have my numbers right, and so again, it was a lot of fumbling. Not gonna lie, wasn't necessarily my proudest moment. But here you can see I did get the Broly Savage Rush, and then use the red ball to get the SR to pop the 4-drop. It's easier to kind of do that now versus later, and minimize kind of the hand advantage that you'd get if I popped the 9-drop. So was happy to do that. And then I thought that was weird that he warped the 9-drop there. But yeah.
Yeah, I think some people's preferred way to play into Dark Broly with Syn is to not put the 9-drop on board, because it doesn't negate skills, right? Because everything effectively has on play autos and not skills that are relevant to the swing. But I think the key is if you can play it, it gains you advantage a lot of times because they will warp it so that they don't lose or they don't lose the swing. They would prefer to get the swing, like you want to push that 30K swing into the leader, not into the 9-drop. So when you do that, you're like the 9-drop gives you advantage either way. If they don't remove it, you get a block out of it and you still draw your cards. If they do remove it, you get your ball back and you get to draw 2 cards, which is really significant in like your ability to keep your hand size up, because Dark Broly being able to keep bringing out the one that warps a card from your hand is just brutal. And then on top of that, if you get to turn 6, you'd really like to be able to you'd like to be able to get enough dragons in the drop, which means you need to get your hand size up, because with Dark Broly messing with your drop the whole game, it's possible that you don't have great options in your drop come turn 6 if you can survive to there. So not getting the 9-drop on board is a little odd. Like I think that's something that I board the 9-drop constantly, and at least as early as I can, because the effect is so good on the 4-drop to lock the leader. And then like in that case, I don't even know that I bother with the 4-drop because it doesn't have a target.
Yep. And so this was while you were talking, I didn't want to interrupt, but I stood my leader, and that's because he had locked my leader the turn prior. I knew he couldn't swing, but I actually didn't ready him. So I had asked him and just said, I get to stand my leader kind of after my turn. And he said, yeah. So then when he played the 4, he couldn't lock my leader because my leader wasn't in rest mode.
Yeah. And
so
then,
here he has another 9-drop. So he probably pitched the 9-drop knowing that he had another one in hand.
That's fair.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Nova's tough because like the Nova's a 15K swing, but I would almost be tempted in this case to try and maybe do more of the head games play where I leave one up, hoping that you notice it and it forces you to do things maybe a little differently. You try not to sequence where you're just swinging casually. It makes you maybe think you're playing into Nimbus if you're not careful. Because I think there are a lot of times where, like, when you tap out, you just telegraph the information. You give away information that you don't necessarily need to give away. Some matchups you have to, right? Like, some matchups you have to tap out because you're going to get tapped out anyway. Like, if you know you're going to get tapped out by Bergamo, just do it. You just tap out yourself and get advantage. But, like, in this case, he could have left one up to make you think Nimbus, because the Nova ended up just being a 15K swing, and you probably just leave it on board, so it's no big deal.
So yeah, that's the one that hurt. I did in fact miss. If I recall correctly, I think it was like a Champa, a super combo, and then like 3 of my 4 Goku True Fighting Spirits because I don't know how to shuffle. And literally, if we had audio, it would sound like this.
Yeah,
So that one sucked terribly.
That's rough right there, because like you rely so much on just the extra cards that get put in there. I know like even Eddie talks about how, you know, if you can spike Dark Broly down super hard, you get some advantage because they can't afford to get their leader effect off, because a lot of times you have to awaken faster, and you basically just had that effect kind of on accident. Like you accidentally kind of had that effect, unfortunately.
And I'm glad you guys can't see my hand, but I'm going to out myself. I did have the red Broly in hand, and I also had Heartfelt.
Oh yeah, that's rough.
And I just awoke. So if you can't laugh at yourself, you know, who can you laugh at? So again, like I said, this game was pretty embarrassing for me. Just a lot of misplays on my part, but you know, we just keep going, and I just keep looking at myself very embarrassed.
And then here's the pure gold that is the Syn package. When you get that 30K on 30K attack, and you can use that Oceanus to just restand it, get out of the 30. If they don't combo up to 35, you're just gold. 1 card, double block.
Yep. And so I kind of rejiggered my turn here. I believe I'm going to, if I remember correctly, get the SR out and pop the 9-drop, and then Meki Kaburo the 4-drop. Doing that. So get the Broly Savage Rush. I picked up the ball with the Toa last turn, I believe. So use the ball.
Oh,
See, knocked over my deck. So
there
spoil.
went your deck.
It was slippery. Get the SR, pop the 9-drop, and then Meki Kaburo the 4-drop. So even though I embarrassed myself and didn't necessarily get the play that I wanted, although with the 9-drop out, I guess the Heartfelt isn't as cool.
Yeah. Yeah, you get the
So
offering, but you don't get the triple strike.
yeah, so I guess I didn't play too terribly, but I was definitely in my head going to go 7-drop Heartfelt, and decided to awaken without doing that because I'm an idiot. For anybody curious how my drop is laid out, the ball and negates, and basically things that I can't warp for Broly's are directly under the deck, and then the things that can go to the warp, which is to the side of the deck, are below the warp, just to help me manage my drop and my warp effectively. I always tell my opponents, and they seem to get it, but it definitely works wonders for me. I'm not a very smart man, as you can tell, as I'm talking about my play lines and everything that I did wrong. Oh, here we go. Getting hazed all over the place now.
That's a lot of haze for 30K. Are you swinging into his leader there, or are you
I
swinging in?
I'm swinging into his leader. Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting that he defended that hard on 4 life, because at some point with Syn, you have to either play Meki Kabura or you have to awaken on 3, and I
So
think I would.
spoiler alert: he is gonna awaken with Meki Kabura next turn.
Yeah, I
He
mean,
does have it in his hand.
you can still play the Meki and go down to 3 for the hand advantage to keep the haze off the board, though, or to keep the haze in
Yeah,
hand. That's 2 cards. 2 cards is a lot of hand advantage.
absolutely. And I think, yeah, but if there's not, he wasn't going to combo out, I guess. So it's,
Yeah.
and I don't really have any double strikers either. Although, unless I'm going for games, so you might want to save it until you see the jump, I guess.
Yep.
You're smarter
Yeah.
than me, Blake.
I think into like the big 30Ks, you save the hazes for if somebody kind of casually throws a double strike on there.
Yeah. So you guys, if you saw that there, I tried to combo with a Dart Broly, realizing I can't do that. So I kind of take it back into my hand, use the red ball, because again, I'm not a smart man. And I aimed for his Nova there, just with the 15K.
See, now I just want to see, the thing I want to see more than anything is I want to see him play that promo. Cuz he's got, you can see the promo in hand, his drop's pretty fat right now, so I will say it's interesting. That's an interesting choice to their to play the Meki and tuck a Meki instead of choosing to just charge one, play one, and then your hand is more stacked. But
Yeah.
again, lots of personal style choices when you play a deck like Syn that's control oriented and has a ton of options, because you run into a lot of decision points that can be a little tough in the deck and a little funky in the deck. And I have a very specific way that I prefer to play the deck, and Jonah obviously has his preference too. So it's always interesting to see other people play the deck that you play a lot, and just to see if they do anything that you do or don't do.
Yeah. So you saw I charged Demigra because I top decked it, and then I had one in hand. I had exactly 5 black cards in my drop, so thought it'd be a good time to Dark Overwhelm. If you see me kind of shuffling my drop into my warp, I put the ball and the Vegeta on the bottom of the warp, just so I know I can't pull it back, right? So everything's just to make sure that I'm not cheating, because I'm not a very smart person.
I mean, keeping the drop and warp and everything organized correctly it's important. I think it's something that sometimes can cause confusion, but one of the things about Dragon Ball that's unique is that a lot of games, it's interesting because a lot of games have very specific like very specific setups and ways that everything needs to be. But the interesting thing about Dragon Ball is that a lot of people set up their drop and warp differently anyway. So, you know, like if you look at Jonah, his warp is upside down under his drop, whereas I always put my warp above my deck. So, you know, it's so much personal preference on stuff like that that I think organizing your drop so that you keep your cards correctly is just totally fine.
Although shout out to PPG, uh, and
Yeah, for the
they came out
webcam.
with some rules and some ways to lay it off. I'm not giving everybody the bird. I was just pointing at the card.
Yeah.
He nimbused me, and I mentioned that he had to discard a card. But I think official PPG rule documentation wants the warp above the deck, wants the life horizontal. So I'm gonna start practicing that. Make sure that I don't get DQ'd from the invitational, which I'm very excited about, as well as the upcoming regionals. So super fun.
Yeah, I'm pretty finicky about, I mean, obviously Robert knows how finicky I am about how things how things are on decks. I'm very particular about how I like to set things up and organize things.
I feel like no matter what, I never have enough room in my battle area. Like I only have 4 cards there, and it looks packed. Like I don't know what I'm doing wrong.
See, I stagger cards, so I'll put cards like kind of one and then one at like down to the right a little bit, so you can still read their cost and their name. It a lot of times it covers the power, but that's not usually a big deal. But you can see like combo power and cost and everything. And then if somebody asks about the power, you can kind of move it to the side. But I just kind of keep them staggered so that they're pretty readable and totally usable. Now I'm kind of curious. See, you can't tell us because obviously we don't want spoilers before the end of the video. But I I want him to play the promo so bad right now because I want him to test like if you have a negate, which granted you haven't played one the whole game, so you probably have one, but it's still worth just dropping a 30k triple strike and daring somebody to not have a negate.
You know me, no negate lifestyle, baby. Strap on the helmet.
As few as
Although I'm not
possible,
very
right?
fast right now. Took a few turns
Yeah,
to
I
get
mean,
going.
it kind of looks like you're playing control. You're playing control Dark Broly. Is that what you're doing here? Is this a new variant of Dark Broly where you're trying to play a control variant?
I think that you just scarred me so bad that whenever I go fast, like you just punish the hell out of me with your 8 drops and stuff. That I just try to play a little bit slower.
That's fair.
It's been on my training to do list is slow it down a little bit.
Oh no, did he miss the 4-drop?
He did.
Oh.
He has no 4 drops. 2 are in his drop. 2 are in his warp.
Ugh.
Yeah.
That's brutal.
Yeah. So I think he just passes. Oh no, he's on.
Passes.
Oh no, he passed.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yep.
Yeah, I think this here is why I don't ever charge a ball because a ball is always a target for something to be able to be played off of, and it just gives you an option for something to do.
Yeah, and I think part of it is again Dark Broly's warping so many cards that it can kind of mess with your drop and what you think you can do with it as well, kind
Yeah,
of a little
I'd
bit.
be curious about his ratios too because we've only seen one Nova, and Nova's a really good way to get the 4-drop back to evolve to the 9 because if you don't have a Syn ball on board, you can use the Nova to tap it, burst, and then put the Syn on board. So if you have the Syn in the drop, then an easy thing to do is swing with your leader. You pay 1 to play the Nova. Then you swing with your leader and you combo the Syn ball off. Then you tap the Nova to bring out the 4-drop from the drop, and then you can tap 1 to evolve the 9 over top of it. So you effectively pay 2 for the 9 drop instead of 3, and you don't have to have access to a Syn ball for it.
Big brain plays with Blake.
just trying to, it's all about efficiency with Syn. I mean, that's the thing that's really important about playing control is you have to play very tight, and you have to really keep control of the game state at all times. And here he definitely, he gets crit 1
Yep.
because he can't.
And
Can't get him on
so
board.
here we're talking about the effect for those who aren't aware of the 7-drop is that you have to do you have to warp one battle card from your hand, one from the battle area, and then one from your drop. You can't choose, say, 3 from your hand. Not that I don't think anybody would ever want to do that, but it has to be one from each area. So oftentimes I try to aim the 7-drop when their battlefield is clear, or when their drop is clear, which actually happens more often than you would think, just to get that crit life. And then now he's at 2, and so now I'm threatening the Champa double strike. So I love playing the 7-drop as an EX evolve when when my opponent's at 3 life, because ideally I take the crit life and then I threaten the double strike with the Champa.
So here's an interesting touch point where I think I would have played it differently. I think off the Meki tap I would have because you were swinging so Meki tapped. I think I would have tapped your Meki Kabura or something that could have swung with a double strike, because I think that's
well. So
where,
a couple of things, because I thought this too when he played the Zamasu and actually rested my leader. I wasn't sure that's the could there be something else that would have been better to rest leader? But to that point, I also had a Goku there. So I had a lot of swings coming, and then after this combo, I could pull more stuff out of at least another Broly out of it. But he didn't have a negate, so I kind of went bananas.
This is where having one up, it would have been great to have that Dragon Thunder too, because Dragon Thunder, when you pay for it, can negate skills. So he could have sniped the double strike right off it. So that was a good game there, man. That was a tight game. Syn, I think, has a pretty good shot into a lot of decks, and I don't know that Dark Broly is much different. So thanks everybody for hanging out and watching the game with us. If you have some thoughts on things, throw them in the comments. If you haven't liked and subscribe to us, please like the video, subscribe it if you liked it, let us know you enjoyed it, and we will continue to put this stuff out. So thanks everyone for hanging out with us, and we will see you next time.
A great one.